Blog Talk Radio.
Bichamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit Eneye AKANFO NANASOM Da Medinde Ojirapo Kwesi Radnehem Tuta Akan. Apamumai Amaruka Etiti Mu Ojirapo, that means greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit, people meaning Africans, black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Radnehem Tuta Akan. Ojirapo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Irate, we thank you for tuning in once again. We're going to place some links in the chat room, going over the information that we will be covering tonight. For the individuals who are new to the broadcast, we do have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. On Mondays on Joda, we have AKANFO NANASOM, ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion, where we deal with the Akan expression of Nanasom, the Akan expression of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral religion. Number 1, because, of course, we are Akan. Number 2, because of the misinformation that's being promoted by individuals not only in the Western Hemisphere with regard to Akan spirituality or Akan religion, but also individuals on the continent who have been infected with white culture, infected with Islam, infected with Christianity, various expressions of the perversity of white pseudo-religion and white culture and white values. Those infections have manifested through the culture of the past 100 plus years, so you have different individuals who are promoting misinformation regarding Akan spirituality. And the same is true of various Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African cultures across the continent. Anybody who has allowed the infection of white culture to pollute their expression of culture, their expression of ancestral religion, their expression of spirituality, this is the result. So we focus specifically on the Akan expression of ancestral religion on Joda on Monday night. On Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification. And we deal with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion in general, purifying concepts. Ojira means purification, purifying concepts, purifying cosmology, purifying the understanding of culture, rooted in our direct ancestry. Of course, as we always say, the central institution of learning within Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion is your Nsamai Komre, your ancestral shrine. You learn directly from your Nananum Nsamanfo, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. That's the central institution of learning. So we get that information with regard to cosmology, and how we have to operate in a harmonious fashion from moment to moment to moment, day to night to day, lifetime to ancestral life to lifetime, and so forth, from within our blood circle. So we go into detail about that kind of information, reading text from ancient commands, as well as analyzing various aspects of cosmology and how it impacts every aspect of our lives. As we always say, Ojira, or purification, operationalizes Nanasom. And Nanasom is our catch-all term for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion. No matter what expression it takes on the continent or wherever we have migrated or been forced to migrate in the world. We have continued our culture, continued our ancestral religion, continued spirit possession, Akom, continued spirit communication, Nkom. So as long as Akom and Nkom, spirit possession and spirit communication occurs, which it has occurred and continues to occur with our people, wherever we are on earth, then we have a direct connection to the forces of nature. And Akan are called Abosom. In Yoruba, they call it the Orisha, and so forth. In Fon and Ebe, they call it the Vodou. We have a direct connection with the forces of nature through Akom, spirit possession. We have a direct connection with the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circles through Akom, through spirit possession. And as long as we have that direct connection and the connection to our Krawa, our soul, divine consciousness, the divinity dwelling in our head region, that was assigned to us as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. Each one of us individually is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. The divinity assigned to us by Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being. That means we have a direct connection to Nyamewa, Nyame, the Great Mother, the Great Father, the Supreme Being, Amenet and Amen. We have a great direct connection to the forces of nature. We have a direct connection to our Nananum Samanfo. So through our Akan and Kamit, spirit possession and spirit communication, we cannot lose our culture. No matter how far we've been removed geographically from the continent and culturally from the continent on the surface, underneath the surface, we have a direct connection consciously to the Supreme Being, the forces in nature that animate all of creation, and our ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. So we go into detail about that, and we show how Ojida purification operationalizes Nanasom and how it impacts every aspect of our lives. Then we have on Awukuda or Akuada Wednesdays, we have Egua, which means marketplace, and we showcase various Black businesses, organizations, and institutions. We have individuals who come onto the show and talk about their business, organization, institution, how they are serving the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community in a positive capacity through their work, through their products, through their services, through their organization, and how their ancestral religious values inform their service to the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community. So we've had a number of people come on, and we'll continue to have individuals come on, and we're also in that vein, we have established and published our Akan economic development model. And the Akan economic development model is an approach to economic development for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people rooted in our ancestral religious practice, philosophy, and culture, and so forth. It's a means by which we can utilize the resources we have, capital, intellectual capital, and capital in general, and begin to support Black businesses, organizations, institutions, so we can liberate ourselves economically. We published that model. You can go to the Akan Economic Development page, and we'll put that link in the chat room. And when you go to the Akan Economic Development page, okay, we just put that link in the chat room. You see the model. You can download the entire model. You can read the entire model. We also have a 4-part series that we did on Blog Talk Radio, and you can view the videos from that 4-part series where we go in detail explicating the model and how it applies to various aspects of our lives as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. We also have 2 additional videos, Egua Koti, which is economic warfare, where we delineate the reality every time we engage in any form of exchange. Anytime we engage in any form of activity, we must recognize the reality of where we are. Just as our ancestresses and ancestors, once they were forced into this hemisphere, they recognized that they were behind enemy lines. And every time they engaged in any kind of activity amongst one another, sharing information with one another, it was always with the consciousness of the reality that they were behind enemy lines, and those exchanges of information, of materials and so forth, were designed to assist in the liberation of themselves and Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people as a whole. In the same context, we are living behind enemy lines. So every time we engage in any form of exchange, be it intellectual, physical, cultural, social, economic, we must recognize that reality and utilize any form of exchange as a strike against our enemy, a strike towards liberation, liberation. So we deal with that in that video in connection with the economic development model. And then we also have the No Kwadeso Ne Amamre, which is self-employment and ancestral religion. So we talk about the notion of self-employment, how it's supported through ancestral religion. We talk about the self, the craft, the soul, the divine consciousness, the divinity dwelling in the head region that was assigned to us by the Supreme Being, the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. And of course, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. That divinity in our head region, encoded within that force, is the specific function we have to execute in creation and the manner in which we have to execute that function. So therefore, we're led by the Kra while the soul, the divine consciousness, dwelling in our head region, that divinity. And when we align ourselves with that, we are in alignment with this, not only the function we have to execute in creation, but also the specific configuration of energy that we have been given to execute our functions in creation. If we have an enforcing function in creation, like the immune system cells in the body, then we're naturally inclined towards that kind of functioning in our community, in our society, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. So that's our function, to restore order, to eradicate disorder and its purveyor, and we're naturally inclined towards that. However, we're also given a specific configuration of power so that we can execute that kind of fiery function. So the Supreme Being encodes our soul, our divine consciousness, our Okrawa, with a specific function execute, as well as the configuration of energy to support that function. So that is all woven within the self, the Kra, the spirit's brand. Once we attune to the self, then we employ our talents, our capacities to fulfill our potential. That is self-employment, internally. And then once we engage in self-employment, because we know who we are, who our true selves are, based on the divinity that governs us, and then we employ our spiritual capacity towards the fulfillment of our divine function. That's an internal self-employment. Then that extends to our interactions with one another as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, and we're naturally inclined towards self-employment, self-rule, self-governance, and the defending of our sovereignty. So we're going into detail about that in that broadcast as well. So all of that is on the Akan Economic Development page, and then you also see a list of businesses, an ever-growing list of businesses, organizations, and institutions. We are targeting one business per week for 52 weeks. We are actually in week number 15, so when you look at the past week, you'll see the various businesses, individuals who have come onto the show, sat with us for a couple of hours, talked about their business, organization, and institution, and their philosophy of serving our community. So you can click directly on their link from that page. So you can download the Akan Economic Development Model and study that. You can download the videos that go into detail about that. You can download the links to the various businesses. But you can also go support those businesses. And you can also, we have the links to their interviews where you can listen to their 2-hour interviews as well. And we'll be posting the business of the week later tonight for this week. So we're in week number 15. But we're dealing with one business per week for 52 weeks for capital infusion. Our method and strategy is to starve the beast and feed the prize. That means we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have wasted with the white Sonaro Spring and reallocate those funds, starve that white beast, and then reallocate the funds and feed the prize, feed the business of the week. So if you spend $5 or $10 at a store, Target, Walmart, Starbucks, McDonald's, CVS, 7-Eleven, any place where you're wasting money purchasing products that you really don't need, food products or other products that you could actually do without, you starve the beast, take that $5, $10, $15 away from that white beast and feed the prize, the business of the week. And of course, 1,000 people took $10 away from the white business owner, like from 7-Eleven, in the course of a week and reallocated it. If they starve the beast and feed the pride and reallocate it to the business of the week, that's a $10,000 infusion of capital to a black business. Of course, they can keep their business open. Of course, they can expand their services to us and serve us at a greater capacity. They can also hire people from within the community so that they can have employment while they're serving us at the same time. If we don't do that, of course, by default, we are leaving that $10,000 with our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. So we must begin to take control of our economics, but we must have a philosophy rooted in our ancestral culture based on our own self-employment so we can recognize the value of engaging in that kind of economic activity. We must recognize the reality of economic warfare and our place in the world and our relationship to one another and our non-relationship with the spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring, the Echiwadifo. When we understand that, and that's all addressed in the model, then we automatically are naturally drawn and inclined towards consciously begin to support and value our own businesses, organizations, and institutions. So we have that Akan Economic Development Model, and you can go directly to that page. And we'll be posting that information later tonight for the business of the week. What we have done, we posted a couple of links. No, let me put one more link in the chat room. We posted the link to the Yao article, Yabosom Yao, and now we're posting a link to Oberima, our book Oberima, Afurakani Manhood. And we're going to go over some of that information. And one more announcement. We've had a few people, and we'll announce it later in the show as well. We have had a few people. Hold on one second. Just want to pull this up right quick. All right. So we've had a few individuals, actually a number of individuals, who have asked us. For example, we published 16 books to date. We've also published over 60 articles. And then we have, to date, we have 130 broadcast archives from our Blog Talk Radio shows. All of those broadcast archives, all of the shows are between 2 and 3 hours. You can download all 130 of them directly from the Blog Talk channel. And you can, download them, save them, and so forth. And we do encourage people to download and save them. You can listen to them at your leisure. This is show 131. But the 16 books we've published, the ebook versions of all of our books, we have made them available as free downloads directly from our website. We also published the softcover versions of our books, and we'll put the link in the chat room as well. And we publish and we print in-house on our own printers in color. The books range between $8 and $11. And you've seen some of the books, Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa, where we prove conclusively that the term Africa is directly from Afuraitkaitnit, coming directly from our cosmology. It has no basis in any European languages or pseudo-Semitic languages or any of that nonsense. It doesn't come from Scipio Africanus, as many black so-called scholars have misinformed us about, following the whites and their offspring. So we go into detail about that in Maat and Hati, divine law, love, and divine hate. We have the Kukutuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction, where we talk about the cosmological foundation of creation, as well as the fictional characters of the Bible, Quran, and Talmud, proving that Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Buddha, all of these different characters, Yahweh, Allah, are fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any race whatsoever or in any form whatsoever. So we have a number of books. And you've seen some of those. So the ebooks you can download. We do sell the softcover versions. We also have the No Quadefo distributor program. So when you go to the site, if you'd like to be a distributor of our softcover books, you purchase them wholesale, 30% off, and then of course you sell them retail. So for example, the Kukutuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction, is $10. You purchase it for $7, and then you sell it for $10 and make $3 for every book you sell. Now we have some people who are distributing already. We do need distributors in every state and in different parts, different cities as well within those states to get this information out. This is a way for individuals to generate income for themselves if they're either unemployed or underemployed, need additional income. And this is a way for you to be self-employed, independent, as an an entrepreneur. When you purchase the books from us wholesale, you're not working for us. You're working for yourself, just like any entrepreneur will purchase products wholesale and then, sell them retail in their area. So we have that program, and it's already up and running, and people have been engaged in that process. We have had some individuals over the past year since we, started putting the softcover books out in volume. Every now and then we have some individuals ask about consignment option. There's some people who are unemployed, some people who don't have the funds to make the initial purchase of the book wholesale. We ask the people if they're going to be a distributor, the minimum purchase for the first set of books that you're going to sell, the minimum purchase is 10 books. So basically, for example, again, if you purchased 10 copies of, or 5 copies of the Kuku Tuntum and 5 copies of the Afuraitkaitnit, the Origin of the Term Africa book, both of those are $10. So, 10 copies with 30% off, of course, is $70, and you would sell them in total for $100. But that $70 plus like $4 in shipping will be the first. That would be like the minimum order, 10 books, based on the fact that that's the basic order. Plus, you want to save on shipping. So some people, if they're unemployed, they do not have $70 right now to send, and people have asked if we do things on consignment, or we would send the books out to them, and then once they sell them, then they could, pay us back and then just continue the process and begin to sell. Now, we sent out a notification today regarding that. We're trying to accommodate that situation. We typically print on demand with regard to our books. So we don't typically have an inventory. It's more cost-effective to simply print on demand. And since we print ourselves in-house and in color, we can print on demand. We don't have to ship our books out to be printed by a third party and then have them ship them back to us or send them out from a third party who we don't know and so forth. So we print on demand so that we don't waste materials printing books that would just be sitting, and then people order other books, and then we have spent the money already to print out some books that haven't moved yet. So we print on demand to be more efficient, cost-effective. So we haven't had to get into position as of yet to just send out, large quantities of books on consignment and then wait for the funds to come in. However, we have one strategy that we developed to accommodate that. So if there are individuals who would like to be distributors of our work, you don't have the funds right now to purchase the first set of 10 books, but you still would like to receive the books on consignment, and then once you receive them and sell them, then you can, compensate us and so forth, and then keep it going by purchasing more books and so forth. The strategy that we've developed, and we sent an email out, and if you're not on our email list, just simply, if you listen to Blog Talk, of course, you can do it a couple of ways. You can go to our regular website and email us, or on Blog Talk, on our Blog Talk channel. If you look on the front page of the Ojeda channel on Blog Talk, there's the follow me button or the follow button, which is a subscribe button. Just click on that button, and you'll be on our mailing list. So anytime a new show comes up or any announcement comes up, when we send that email out, you automatically will receive that email. So you can follow us that way, and we'll resend this email out. But the strategy is, number one, if you want to engage in that process, simply share our Nhoma page, the publications page, to all of your various contacts on Facebook and other forms of social media. That's number one, because the more people who purchase softcover versions of the book, as we print them out and sell them, as we get more funds in to, deliver books, then we'll also be able to, at the same time, print out some additional books instead of only printing on demand and printing exactly what we need based on the exact orders that we need. If a larger volume of orders come in, then we can print out exactly what we need and send those orders out. But in addition to that, we'll be able to print out some additional books, and then those books we can ship out to you with no cost to you up front. And then once you sell them, of course, then you can compensate us and then just keep it going. So the first piece is, if you are interested in that, just send the Nhoma link, the publications page, a link to all your various, contacts on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all of that, Tumblr and everything. The second piece is for individuals who are not necessarily interested in being distributors, but if you support the work that we are doing, if you appreciate the publications we put out and the free publications and broadcasts and so forth, if you haven't, you can also share the Nhoma links, because the more people who become aware of our publications and make purchases, that enables us to print out additional copies and send those out on consignment. So, number one, of course you can send those links out. Number two, there are some books that you have not yet purchased. Maybe you purchased the Afuraitkaitnit book and the Maat and Egypt book, but you haven't purchased a couple of other ones that you were thinking about. Any purchase that you make will assist us, not only, of course, in serving you and sending those books out, but being able to print some additional soft covers out to send out to the individuals who would like to be employed right now, but they just don't have the funds, so that we can send those books out so they don't have to, endure the startup costs. But then once they get those books and get them out there and sell them, then they'll be able to get going. So any purchase, of course, helps in that, in that regard. Also, any donation of $15 or more, we will send you one or more of our softcover books. Just let us know which one you would like. Sometimes people will make a recurrent donation as well, which means, for example, some people will make a $15 recurrent donation. When you click that recurrent button in PayPal, then every month PayPal will take $15 from you and send it to us. We have 16 books out now, so for at least the next 16 months, you'll receive one of our books in the mail for your $15 per month donation. A larger donation, we could send a couple of books out, so it just depends. So that's the two-pronged strategy. Number one, send out the Nhoma link, the publications page link. When you go on our Facebook page, we posted like a status with the front covers of our various books and so forth, so people can actually see those covers with information and the link and so forth. You can simply share that post, one of our statuses when you go on our Facebook page at any time. And also, it's one of our photos, as a matter of fact. And also, the second piece is if you make a purchase, or for those who are, not interested in being a distributor, but if you like to support this effort, so we can employ our people, any purchase you make, any donation you make will assist in that effort. And of course, any donation of $15 or more, we'll send you a book. So that two-pronged strategy is the option. That's a way we can accommodate individuals who would like to employ themselves today, right now, but they just do not have the startup funds. But they know once they get the books in hand, they're in their communities. They know people will purchase those books because nobody has those books. They're not in stores. People have to order them directly from us. So once people actually see these work, and they're only, range between $8 and $11, they will purchase them. People just need them in their hands. So this is a way that we can tangibly employ our people. We're not just talking about support Black business. This is a way that any Black person, male or female, can begin working immediately for themselves, serving the community, giving them information that will empower them. We deal with natural health, for example, in the Nkwamua Whole Life Journal, as well as spiritual health, behavioral health, overcoming addictions to alcohol, marijuana, and so forth through ancestral religion. And of course, we have our various publications dealing with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, culture, truth story, revolution, resolution, ancestral nation building, and so forth, in its various aspects. Exploding myths, clarifying information, bringing purification, and so forth. Dealing with ancestral religion from our direct blood circles wherever we are in the world. So that's what we're dealing with in that economic development piece. So what we want to do is we're going to get to, we posted the link to the Obedima Afurakani Manhood book, and we want to get that information out. So when you go to that, you'll see we posted two links. The Obedima Afurakani Manhood book, that's the ebook version. We're just going to go to one section in there. We also posted the Akradim Bosom article on Nana Yao, which is Heru. In the Akan tradition, one of his titles is Yao. We're going to deal with that. So, tonight's subject is emotion, heartening, Ab, Hati, or Ebo, Yam, ritual to equilibrate life. So we are in the midst, in reality, of a series dealing with a ritual practice. In the past, on AKANFO NANASOM, for example, we've had a couple of series. We had a 7-part series on the spiritual organs within Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African people. So we talked about the Okra, the Okrawa, the Ka, the soul, the divine consciousness. We talked about the Ba and Baet, about the Obra and Akan Obra, the divine living energy within us. We talked about the Hum, also called Aku and Eku in ancient Kamit. Eku becomes Ehum in Akan, and Hum is doubled in Akan. That the spiritual force that whose shrine in the body is the pineal gland, the pineal body. So we also talked about the Ab and the Hati a number of weeks ago, and we're going to get back on that, but we're going to deal with ritual tonight. But we talked about the Ab and Hati, the spiritual heart, as well as the heart-lung complex. We talked about the Sahu, the spirit body that carries all of these spiritual organs. It's called the Sun Sum in the Akan tradition. We also talked about the Samain, which is the quote-unquote, as well as the Sun Suma, which is the, on one hand, the apparition, quote-unquote apparition, when somebody makes the transition. They are a spirit, they're a Sun Sum, but what you see is their electromagnetic form, which is the Samain, the quote-unquote ghost of the Arg body. We talk about the Kahibit and so forth. It's called the Samain, as well as Sun Suma, the spirit apparition, the energetic form of the spirit body that you can actually see if you're a little bit clairvoyant, as well as the shadow, the light and dark aspect of that. And it's called the Samain and the Sun Suma in the Akan tradition. And then we talk about, of course, the physical body that, is the magnet for the spirit. So we have this 7-part series of the different aspects, the spiritual organs within the spirit body of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit individual. And we delineated those and their attributes, their properties and so forth, giving proper definition, clarification, purification, jida, because many people have misinformed regarding these spirit bodies. For example, you'll find in different books that they call the Ka, in ancient Kemet, the Ka, female version is Kaet or Ka. They'll call it the spirit. They'll call it the spirit that's left behind. It's the energetic body, and it's the spirit that's left behind after somebody dies, and sometimes they call it the ghost. Totally inaccurate. The Ka in ancient Kemet is called the Kra in Akan. It is a deity that dwells in the head region. It's a force in nature that is assigned to us by the Supreme Being to guide us throughout the course of our lives. It is a colleague of the other forces in nature, the other Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, and so forth. It's called the Ori Idu in the Yoruba tradition, and the Selido in Vodun, and the Chi in Igbo. It is the Okrawa, the soul, the divine consciousness in the Akan tradition. We align with that divinity. So in fact, we wrote a whole book just on the Okra complex, the soul of AKANFO, and we detail that and prove that etymologically from ancient Kemet through our Akan culture as well. We show the connections with the Yoruba tradition and Vodun as well. And we go into detail about the nature of the Ka, the soul, divine consciousness, and what it actually is. Some people will call the Ba and the Baet. There's a Ba, which is male, Baet is female. You see that human-headed bird flying around, and it's sitting at the wing of the heart, which we're going to get into tonight. It has a little bowl of incense burning in front of it. That is the divine living energy within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit body. And of course, our bodies only. These spiritual organs do not exist within the white snare offspring. The Ba is the divine living energy, a child of the great Ba and the great Bayat, the great spirit, Ra and Ra'et. Ra and Ra'et are the creator and creatress. They are children of Amen and Amenet, actually grandchildren. They are called Nyonkumpon and the Yonkunton in the Akan tradition, the creator and creatress who serve the Supreme Being. So we make the proper distinctions between the great mother and great father, Amenet and Amen, or Nyamewa and Nyame, as we say in Akan, and Nyonkumpon and the Yonkunton, or Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress who serve Amenet and Amen. Amenet and Amen direct the creator and creatress to go out and create, Just like you as a being direct your divine living energy within your body to move to different parts of your body, including your reproductive organs, to go out and create a child and so forth. So we make that distinction. They are the great Ba and the great Baet. Ra and Ra, the creator and creatress. Their divine living energy animates all things in creation, all created entities, divinely created entities in creation. Plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, human life. That divine living energy animates us. They are the Ba and the Baet is the spirit. The Ka and the Kayet is the soul, divine consciousness. Many people misrepresent the Ba as the soul and the Ka as the spirit. Of course, we did a broadcast on the etymology of religion and spirit and spirituality. We show the etymology of both of those terms, and they can be traced back to ancient Kemet. There's no difference between real religion and spirituality. They are identical. It is pseudo-religion that's not in harmony with spirituality. The white offspring put forth the notion that there's a difference between religion and spirituality that's pure stupidity. And then Negroes who call themselves teachers and master teachers and scholars and elders and elderesses following the white offspring very often linked up with the white offspring promote that foolish notion as well, which is inaccurate. So we prove that through going through the etymology of these terms, tracing them to the language of ancient Kemet. Spirit is directly related to the term Ba and Baet. So the Ba and Baet are not the soul, it's the spirit. And when you look at the etymology of the term spirit and what it's talking about, a coming forth, a coming forward, and then you also look at the term Ba, talking about the explosion, the Ba, the explosion of fire and light, the coming forth, the coming forward. You find it in the language of ancient Kemet. You find it in the Akan language with the exact same meaning. So you find Ba in Akan, you find Ba in ancient Kemet, you find Ba in Vodun, meaning the exact same and power of life, spirit and life. So that's different from the soul. So we go into detail about that. So when we go into these different spiritual organs that people often hear about, the Ba and the Ka and the Aku and the Sahu and the Ab and the Hati and the Kahibit and all of that, we give proper definitions because most, for example, we mentioned in Muwada Ashby's work, the Book of Coming Forth by Day, so-called Book of the Dead and so forth, when he defines the Ba and the Ka and the Aku and the Sekem and the various different organs, he gets all of those definitions inaccurate because he's simply repeating the misinformation coming from white Egyptologists as well as the infection coming from Hinduism that he just simply tries to blacken up. So his definition of Ba, definition of Ka, definition of Aku, definition of Ab and Hati and so forth, all are inaccurate. We can show that these exact same terms still exist in the Akan language with the same meanings and what they actually are. Plus, we deal with these spiritual entities ritually, and now this is what we're dealing with. So when we did that 7-part series, we talked about the nature of these. We started recently a series a few weeks ago on engaging ritual to activate these aspects of our being. The first piece we dealt with, we talked about, one of them was Nkomre, Ancestral Shrine, Communication and Liberation, talking about the Ancestral Shrine, as we said, is the central institution of learning within Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion, and how it was related and a key component of our liberation activity, liberation movement, freedom movement, revolutionary, resolutionary movement in the Western Hemisphere to bring an end to enslavement. We did an entire broadcast on Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, and the defeat of slavery. It was those Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people who held on to their ancestral religious traditions, who were motivated and guided by the Abosom and Nananom Unsamanfo to get up and wage war against the white offspring, massacre them, burn down plantations, free our people from the plantations, wage war continuously on a regular basis, decade after decade, to the point that the white offspring recognized that they were forced into the position of abolition, forced into the position of repatriation and assisting in that, and forced into the position of emancipation, because if they did not move in that direction, they saw and they feared and they recognized that we would massacre them all. It was because of ancestral religion that we brought down the entire system of enslavement. It wasn't the Civil War. It was because black people rose up, began massacring the whites and their offspring, powered by the ancestral religion. If we had not done that, and there was a Civil War, after the Civil War was over, there still would have been slavery. The whites and their offspring would have been perfectly happy having some slave states, and our people still slaving like that. It would have been a slight change in the way the economy worked, but they would have had no problem with continuing with enslavement. But because of what we were doing, AKANFO Yao, Nat Turner, and Denmark Vesey, and Gabriel Prosper, and various other individuals waging war against the whites and their offspring, as well as those of our people in Haiti and Jamaica and Suriname and Brazil and so forth, Cinnamon Bay, all these different revolutionary acts of warfare, they were forced into the position of ending enslavement. So we dealt with all of that, and the Nkombre Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation broadcast, we talked about establishing an ancestral shrine, the nature of the ancestral shrine, and engaging that process ritually as a foundation. So we dealt with the ritual aspect of it. The next week we dealt with the Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness, and dealing with the soul washing ritual. You find that in our book, and we went into some detail about that in that broadcast. We had talked about what the cry is in the past, but now we're talking about ritual and actually invoking that divinity that dwells in the head region on a consistent basis, so you can begin to be guided constantly by that divinity and regulate your life, bring order to your life through aligning with that divinity within your head region. That is our responsibility. This is why we call that broadcast Soul Responsibility, SOUL, responsibility. It is your sole responsibility to align with the divinity that was placed in your head region by the Supreme Being, so you can execute your functioning creation, align every thought, intention, and action with divine order on a consistent basis. The next week we talked about the Ba and Ba'et, the Obra, the divine living energy ritual to instill discipline and regulate your life through instilling that discipline so you can engage life harmoniously. You learn about what your divine function is in creation through the Okra, purifying your head, cleansing the Kra, aligning with that divinity. But then you also must fortify that divine living energy within you so you can utilize your energy to connect and execute your function in a harmonious fashion without creating disorder in the process. So we go into detail with that, and we're dealing with in-spirit discipline. You're inspiriting or bringing into your spirit that discipline so you can awaken the power that you have to execute your function. Last week we dealt with the Aku and Akut, the Ehunhum, as it's called in Akan, the spiritual force that dwells in the pineal body, the eye of the Okra, the eye of the soul, the divine wisdom, intelligence, governed by Tahuti and Seshat, the male and female forces of divine wisdom. So the pineal body, of course, is a light-sensitive gland, receives energy, stimulation from the sun, the moon, and so forth, and because of that begins to secrete hormones or directives for the body's glands and systems and so forth. So in the same fashion, that spiritual pineal body, the Akut, the Hunhum, as we say in Akan, is that force that allows you to attune to not only what's in the Okra, but how do you apply that divine consciousness that's within the Okra, within the soul. How do you apply it to specific situations, including situations that have no precedent? You find yourself in a dilemma, in a situation or circumstance that has no precedent. How do you confront that issue in a harmonious fashion, overcome a brand new obstacle in a harmonious fashion, overcome a brand new disease state based on living in harmony with divine order, based on what's in your crop? You learn that through the pineal body, through the Hunhum, the divine intelligence, internal divine wisdom, and so forth, the eye of the crop. Through the Hunhum or the Akut, you attune to what is in the crop through that organ and how to specifically apply it, make it applicable to specific situations. And we talked about ritual means through Susu, meditation, ritual study ritual reflection, reflecting upon the self at the shrine and so forth, through the breath and so forth, on how to begin to engage that process. So we dealt with that. And when we deal, of course, the Ba and Bayat, we talked about Abu and Kwa using ritual movement to stimulate that divine living energy within the body. So now tonight we're going to deal with the Ab and Hati, the heart and heart-lung complex. We delineated these spiritual organs in that previous broadcast. We want to deal with ritually, we call the show emotion or emotional heartening, the Ab and Hati, called Ebo and Yam in Akan culture, talking about equilibrating life, ritual to equilibrate life. So you talk about the Afuraitkaitnit, the soul, divine consciousness, a divinity dwelling in the head region. Encoded within that is every function, your specific function to execute in the world, and the manner in which you must execute that function, and the spiritual capacities you have been assigned forces in nature with certain kinds of energy that you've been given to execute your function. The Ba and Bayat, the divine living energy, you must replenish that divine living energy within yourself. You must discipline yourself in spirit, not just incorporate, but in spirit discipline within yourself. Because when you're in spirit discipline within yourself, then you can utilize that divine living energy to support what's in the Ka and Kayat. You can utilize the Bayat, the divine living energy to support what's in the soul, the divine consciousness. If you don't in spirit discipline within yourself, then you will misuse the energy you have. And if you engage in disorder, the Ba, that divine living energy, will separate from you. And the only thing you have left to operate on is lower level electromagnetic residual energy. And it's without any connection to divine power. And therefore you can become lustful and steeped in lust and malice and so forth. So you must in spirit discipline so you can access the fullness of the divine living energy you have been given. Then when we deal with the Akut, now you have the Ba, divine living energy operate. You have the Ka, divine consciousness, your divine function in the world. The union of the Ba and the Ka is harmony. And then once you're harmonized in that fashion, the energy and the consciousness is aligned. The Ba and the Ka is aligned. The Bayat and Kayat is aligned. Now you can extract from the Ka and Kayat the specific means by which you must address specific situations in an intelligent fashion, and that is stimulation ritually of the Aku and Aku. And we dealt with decision making last week, a specific means of arriving at decisions in a holistic fashion, a 7-step decision making process based on the Abosom, 7 days of the week, which is that natural cycle governed by the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, which animate the 7 days of the week. We have a 7-part decision-making process which carries the energy of those divinities. It's a holistic cycle. We went into detail about that. We talked about that ritual aspect of attuning to divine wisdom. Now when we deal with the heart, the Ab and Hati, you have these capacities. You have the consciousness, Ka and Kayat. You have divine living energy, Ba and Bayat. You have the capacity to make intelligent, wise decisions based on a harmonious cycle. But the Ab and Hati is dealing with the heart and the heart and lung complex. Of course, when you have emotion, that's natural energy, emotional output, emotion, external motions, and so forth. And of course, motion is movement. But if you get out of harmony with divine order, if you let someone else's projections, and we have other people's projections affect us. If you're outside and the wind blows, that affects your body. If you're in close contact with somebody, people have body heat. Body heat in and of itself affects you on a very subtle level. The electromagnetic projections of somebody is an expression of a portion of their emotional energetic output. And if you have a strong aura, then you repel negative vibrations. You can repel negative intrusions. They will just bounce off. It's like physically, if your immune system is, sound, bacteria that attempts to enter into the body, the immune system kills it, destroys it before it can cause problems. If your spiritual immunity if your aura is vibrant, then you repel the negative projections of other individuals. And the positive, harmonious projections, you harmonize those with yours, and of course you have that connection, communication. But if you're out of harmony, and if your heart is receiving, just like your heart receives blood and so forth, and the blood carries energy, if you're receiving other people's energy, it gets into your system, and then you begin to take on other people's energy as well as misguided thoughts, conditioned behaviors based on ignorance that you accumulated ever since you were a child all the way through adulthood. You continue to replay those things in your mind and your consciousness, and you hold on to them. Your heart, of course, is a repository of all of the energetic projections and receptions and transmissions that you've experienced throughout the course of your life. So if you are not strong, if you're not vibrant, if you're not, your immune system is not, spiritual immune system is not sound, then you'll receive all kinds of things, and then you'll hold on to all kinds of things. When you hold on to things that are discordant vibration, you'll feel your heart, quote unquote, sink. Your heart, quote unquote, becomes heavy. And this is the symbolism and the reference between the weighing of the heart in ancient Kemet. That weighing of the heart does not just happen after death. When you see the deceased spirit of the person going before the scales of Maat, you see the heart on one pan, you see the feather of Maat on the other pan, and you see Tahuti standing there scribing, and very often you see Anpu taking note of the measurement. If the heart outweighs the feather, we're talking about the spiritual heart outweighing the feather, not the physical heart. The physical heart is left inside the body, but if the spiritual heart placed in the pan outweighs the feather, then you are imbalanced, and then you are shown to not have lived in harmony with divine order, and then you are consumed by the divinity Amut, and you're not allowed to go and dwell in the ancestral realm amongst the Nananom Samanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. You are repelled from that region, the ancestral realm, the spirit realm. And then you become one of these individuals who are spirit, who are earthbound, hanging around places where they died, hanging around places where they were murdered, negatively harassing and affecting other individuals because you're full of anxiety and discordant energy. It's not just an after-death state process, however. Every time you are about to make a decision, your heart is placed on the scale of Ma'at to be balanced against the feather every time you make a decision throughout the course of your life. If you engage in self-destructive behavior, disordered behavior, your heart becomes heavy. If you become full of anxiety, you say, well, my heart is heavy. My heart just sunk. It becomes heavy with disorder, heavy with discordant energy, and then, of course, it outweighs the feather because the feather, of course, is very light. So now you're imbalanced. The scales are imbalanced. When you're imbalanced, after death, when somebody's imbalanced, that spirit is hanging around, they can be assaulted by other discordant, wayward spirits. It's like somebody here in the physical world, if they're, become a drug addict or something like that, they become homeless, and they're out in the street. Well, once everybody's at home and it's, midnight and everything, and the kind of people who are out hanging out on the street, you have all kinds of people who are criminals, rapists, murderers, other people who are mentally ill and so forth, and people who are transient out on the street, and they get identified by other transients out on the street. Sometimes they have problems. They begin to get attacked and so forth, and they have to defend themselves. In the after-death state, the same thing happens. If you're imbalanced and you're repelled from the ancestral realm because of your imbalance, you lived a life of disorder. Now you're one of these homeless, earthbound spirits, and the other homeless, earthbound spirits who have been around for hundreds of years, some thousands, they will be drawn to try to assault, harass you as well. So you set yourself up for that. But in the physical world, if you become imbalanced because you make bad decisions, disordered energy is dominating you, discordant energy is dominating you, then you become imbalanced. The scales are tipped. When you become imbalanced, that manifests as emotional instability, mental instability, spiritual instability. Sometimes it's mental or behavioral health issues, schizophrenia and everything else, bipolar disorder and all of these different things, major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, different things like that. So once you become discordant in that sense and remain imbalanced, then you begin to engage in self-destructive, imbalanced behavior. that it negatively affects you. It also negatively affects anybody connected to you. And then, of course, it does not bode well when you make your transition, because then you have been seen to have been a disordered spirit, and you still don't manifest a balanced spirit, a balanced character, and you will be repelled from the community of spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. And you'll be a transient, earthbound type spirit. So this is what we're dealing with. We want to recognize, just like in the other broadcast, we in spirit discipline so we can utilize fully at the optimum the divine living energy operating through us. We engage in that soul responsibility to attune to the divinity that dwells in the head region so we can know who we are, what our function is, and the capacities we have to execute that function. We attune to the hun, the aku, to exercise divine wisdom and the divine wisdom process of making decisions. But we also engage the spiritual heart, the Ab and the Hati, the heart-lung complex, so that we have the heart, we have the will to relentlessly challenge disorder, and that we do not succumb and are not overwhelmed by discordant projections from other individuals coming in from the outside that affect us negatively, emotionally, and then at the same time, those misguided conditionings that were, burned into our brains through this culture. We want to destroy all of that, repel all of that, get rid of all of that, purify ourselves of all of that, so we need to hearten ourselves. Through ritual, you can hearten yourself, make your heart strong, make your heart powerful. Your heart physically is the organ that pumps, the muscle that pumps continuously. It never takes a day off, pumping from the time you're born until, for the next 80, 90, 100 years. It never says, well, I've been pumping for 40 years, let me just get 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just take a 10-minute break, and then I'll do another 40 years. If it does that, of course, things are not going to work out for you. So your heart is relentless in its sending out energy, sending out blood, which also sends out energy. In the same fashion, we must be relentless in challenging disorder. We must be heartened, we must be strong. So first and we have that capacity. In fact, we have that responsibility. It's not natural for us as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people to be controlled by misguided emotionalism and malice. That's not natural, it's not human, it's childish. It's not part of our culture. The white offspring will make you believe that being ignorant, being immature, being self-destructive, being a child is part of being a human being. Then that leads people to engage in self-destructive activities to try to calm that behavior down through drug use and so forth. That's not natural. It makes us schizophrenic in reality. When we can tell our children who are 3 years old, 4 years old, to learn how to share and not start crying because things don't go their way, or don't yell, or don't throw things, or things don't go your way and so forth. By the time they're 3, 4 years old, they're no longer acting like a baby. And if they were 4 or 5 years old and they started crying because something didn't go their way, or they threw something, or got mad and started yelling or falling out and so forth, you would admonish them, stop acting like a child. Even they will point out other children their age who engage in that kind of behavior. They'll point them out and say, so-and-so is acting like a baby, because they know they've grown out of that. But then you become an adult, and you think it's okay when things don't go your way, you start crying, or you start throwing things, you start getting upset and yelling and screaming and losing your composure, because you've been taught that that's being human, and in reality is being a child. We grow beyond that kind of behavior. We regulate our behavior as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. Now, for the whites and offspring, they are spirits of disorder. They don't have a spiritual heart. They don't have a krawa, soul, the divine consciousness. They don't have a ba and ba'et. So they engage in disordered behavior because they're disordered spirits. They would like us to engage in disordered behavior so that we can be controlled and dominated by lust and malice, so that they can continue their control over our activities. But once we liberate ourselves internally, then we turn towards liberating ourselves physically, and we eradicate, physically exterminate our enemy completely. So the key is liberating ourselves first, and that doesn't take a lifetime. That takes a few weeks. So let's get into this information. So if you look in the Betty, my book, there's a section on Nana Yao. You get to page 35. We talk about the planet Yao, which is a title of Heru in the Akan tradition, also called Abrao. It's the largest of the planets in the solar system. It's called Jupiter, of course. It has the greatest weight in Akan culture. One who has courage is said to be Akokoduru, which means his chest. Akoko is heavy, has weight. Duru. This means that the man has heart. Same thing with the woman has heart. The title Abrao, which is a title of a Thursday born Yao, describes one who is brave in Akan culture, one who relentlessly challenges disorder and who never compromises on the truth. The nhumu, or insight that they have into truth, does not allow them to deviate from what is right and proper. When we talk about that, we're talking about the energy effect of Yao. The divinity Yao on your body is the stimulation of your cardiovascular system. Yao, or Heru, gives you heart. The heart begins to pump rapidly in order to send enough blood to the areas that need it when engaged in a battle. In the same manner, Yabosom Yao, in harmony with the female Abosom Ya and Abba, provokes you to exercise your will and redirect your energy to the places, people, and events that need your Nhumu, need your insight to challenge disorder relentlessly, overcome unresolved issues, and new obstacles. It is through this process that you actualize your maturity by developing the ability to make proper judgments consistently. So, we had a divine wisdom-making decision-making process rooted in divine wisdom we talked about last week, dealing with the aku, and that's a sound process. But throughout the course of life, you're going to come in contact with individuals and entities who will attempt to project their negative energy upon you, consciously or unconsciously, and attempt to influence you by weaving misinformation into your mindset. And once you take that information in, it becomes part of your pseudo-belief system. Now you begin to operate based on that pseudo-belief system and internalize disordered ideas, which causes you to engage in disordered thoughts, intentions, and actions, and therefore you become self-destructive and it becomes self-perpetuating. So you must have heart to be able to reject that. How do you stimulate that heart so you can equilibrate the divine living energy flowing through you? Just like your heart sends blood to every cell in the body, constantly pumping. The blood carries energy. The energy carries that life force energy. So the heart is the regulator of the flow of blood. It regulates. It speeds up, as we said, when it's time to send a lot of blood, meaning a lot of fire, a lot of energy to certain muscle groups for a fight or flight activity. It'll slow down when it's time for you to, attune to yourself and contemplate and engage in susu, home meditation and so forth, or ritual practice. So the heart is regulating the flow. Is it a strong, fast flow, or is it a cool, slowed down flow? Flow of blood, meaning the flow of energy. Regulator. In the same sense, the spiritual heart regulates the flow of energy within your spirit body. What kind of flow of energy is going through the different aspects of your spirit anatomy, your spiritual anatomy, your spiritual organ? If you're impacted by other people's negative projections, and your heart is a repository for that, and your heart physically, you can feel it becoming heavy, that means your spiritual heart is taking on discordant vibrations, and you're not rejecting that. You're not repelling it. You're not relentlessly challenging disorder. Your heart is not pumping hard enough to explode and send that energy out and disrupt all of that nonsense. So how do we balance ourselves? Ritually. Now we have a form of equilibrating that flow through balancing ourselves, and literally ritual balance, engaging in ritual balance. When you engage in ritual balance, then you train yourself to attune to balance. And when you train yourself to do that physically, you have that capacity to do the same thing spiritually. This is a way that you can engage yourself spiritually in various situations in the moment, not away from the situation when you go do ritual at the shrine or, ritual at a shrine in nature and so forth, engaging in those kinds of things, but right in the midst of a situation, right in the midst of a dilemma, right in the midst of a certain circumstance, if you're out of harmony with order, how do you equilibrate yourself? So we must learn that kind of ritual practice. First, we're going to read something from the Runu Pert Im Heru, the Book of Coming Forth by Day, also called the Book of the Dead, and so forth. Dealing with the heart. And then we're going to get into a specific ritual practice that we utilize that can affect that equilibration of that life force energy, so you can learn to equilibrate and balance yourself and hearten yourself. We're talking about emotional heartening. And when we talk about, for example, Yao, the Abosom Yao, called Heru in ancient Kemet, Yao in Akan is also called Soro in Akan, and Soro comes from Horo or Heru in ancient Kemet. But he's also called Yao in Akan. He's also called Yao in ancient Kemet, which means one who is a fighter and so forth. He governs the heart and cardiovascular system. We just talked about that. You also have Akua, the Abosom, female Abosom, who governs planet Mercury, or Akua, Awuku. She's called Nebet Het, the wife of Set in ancient Kemet. She's Akua, the wife of Awuku and Akan, same divinity. She governs the renal system in the body, the kidneys and ureters and bladder and so forth, that establishes fluid balance in the body and electrolyte balance, mineral balance in the body as well. In the great divine body, she governs the divine renal system and regulates fluid balance, or, emotional balance. And she wears the bowl on her head, and if you notice, sisters can go to the riverfront and get, a vessel, a gourd full of water, and they can put it on top of their head, and then they can walk back up, to the village without spilling a drop of water, because they can balance that water in a huge vessel on their head. If they make a false step, then the vessel starts to sway from one side to the other, and the water begins to go up and down and sway and begins to spill and so forth. So they must be balanced. They must maintain balance. When you see Nebet Het, she has the vessel on her head, the kukua, as we call it, in Akan, on her head. Akua has the kukua, the vessel on her head. She's called Agberu, the wife of Eshu in the Yoruba tradition. The load bearer, as she's called. The vessel on her head, she governs that fluid balance in the body, just like the vessels. The two kidneys are like those vessels, governing the fluid balance in the body. Also dealing with the emotional balance in the body, the fluid balance and the electrolyte or mineral balance in the body. So that earthy, mineral, and watery energy within the body that deals with emotion. So she balances those emotions out. So you have emotional energy that she's balancing in your kidneys, and also in the spiritual aspect of the, kidneys and so forth that she governs. But then Heru comes along with the heart cardiovascular system. He has the power to challenge other people's emotional discordant emotional projections and not allow those negative discordant energetic projections to get into the system and pollute the kidneys, pollute Akua's, system. He relentlessly challenges disorder to maintain order in the kingdom, in the queendom, in the body, and so forth, in the world. And when he has heart, he can repel, he can challenge, and he can regulate order. The king sitting in the heart, just like as well as the queen mother sitting in the heart. But if he's not heartened, then misguided energetic projections pollute the spirit body, pollute the emotional balance, and so forth, and the person becomes misguided emotionally, unbalanced, emotionally unstable, and everything else. So the heartening is key. We're going to read from the text right quick. Hold on one second. Okay, so we'll show how this applies in the physical world and the spirit realm, and then we're going to get into the ritual practice. If you look at the specific text, the chapter of giving a heart to Al-Sar Ani, the person who made his transition is Ani, and he's identified with Al-Sar. He makes his transition. And this particular papyrus was written for Ani when he made his transition. He was a scribe. So the chapter of giving a heart to Ani in the spirit realm. And Ani says, this is what Ani said. He says, may my heart be to me in the house of heart, may my Hati be to me in the house of Hati, or Hatiu. May it be to me my heart, may it rest within me. I shall not eat the cakes of Alsar on the east side of the lake of flowers. A boat in thy going down the Nile, and in your sailing up, nor shall I advance to the boat with you. May it be to me my mouth that I may speak with it, my 2 legs to walk, my 2 hands and arms to overthrow my enemy, which is key. Be open to me the doors of the heavenly realm. May unbolt for me Geb, the chief of the divinities, his 2 jaws for me. May he open my 2 eyes, which were blinded. May he make to stretch out my feet, which were fastened together. Make strong unto my legs to rise up for myself. Make me to rise, Sekhmet, the divinity, so that I can be in the heavenly realm, being done what I command in the house of the Ka of Ptah. I know my heart. I have gained power over my Hati. I have gained power over my 2 hands and arms. I've gained power over my feet. I've gained power to do what pleases my Ka, or my Ka desires. Not shall be imprisoned my body, my spirit, with my body at the gates of the spirit realm, at my entrance in peace and coming forth in peace. So he's saying, may my heart be given to me and my Hati be given to me. The heart, of course, we talked about, the Hati is the heart-lung complex, and the chest, the breast region. And he's talking about, once it's given to me, my heart is given to me, and my Hati is given to me, the heart, as well as the heart and lung complex. I have the breast and the heart and lung complex, as well as the heart pumping and regulating the flow of energy. Now my arms are given to me. I have power over my arms, my legs. My arms were fastened, my legs were fastened, my eyes were closed, my mouth was shut. All of these things are open now. I have power now that my heart has been given to me and my Hati has been given to me. Now I can move and act in the spirit realm, and I can do whatever pleases my Ka, my soul, my divine consciousness. Let's look at this practically. In the Hoodoo tradition, as well as just across the board in Afuraitkaitnit culture, but Hoodoo is the Akan tradition brought to North America by Akan people. Hoodoo, of course, we have a book called Hoodoo People. We show that Hoodoo comes from Undu, which means medicine, root medicine in Akan, but Undu also means to conjure, spirit communication and possession. This is where we get Hoodoo, meaning root work, root doctors, root medicine, and so forth, and Hoodoo meaning conjure. It is the Akan religion brought into North America. So when somebody is practicing, that's how it was brought. Later on, other groups will utilize that term just as a catch-all term for ancestral religion, just like voodoo was brought by the Fon and Ebe people, because Vodun is a Fon and Ebe term. It's actually 2 terms combined into one, by the way. Vo means to rest, and Dun means to draw water. So Vodun means to rest and draw water. When we talked about the sister with the vessels, they would go down to the watering hole or to the river. They would rest. Then they take that big vessel, fill it up with water, and after they have rested, place it on their head because now they're balanced. They gain their energy back by resting because they know they're going to have to fill up that vessel. They're going to put that heavy vessel of water on their head, and they must be strong enough to be balanced so they can walk back to the village, balance, and bring that water back. On a mundane level, there's Vo, doing to rest, and then go in and draw water. Spiritually, you rest, you become still, Vo, and then you draw from that pool of water, which is the gateway to the ancestral realm. You go into the spirit realm, you get possessed, you communicate with the divinity. Divinity alights upon your head through possession. It's like a bowl of water carried on the head, and when the person is balanced, they carry that divinity, carry that Loa, carry that Vodun, carry that Abosom, carry that Orisha, and so forth. And that Orisha utilizes that person as a vessel to communicate directly with the people. So that is to rest, Vo, and Dun, draw water, draw from the gateway of the spirit realm, the watery realm, so that the divinities can communicate and possess and mount upon the person. That's Vodun. So, and we show that because you have individuals just totally butchering that whole notion of what Vodun means and trying to make it mean Ba, which is nonsense. So, when we're dealing with that, for example, in Hoodoo, that's the Akan tradition. Voodoo or Vodun comes from the phone and Ebe language. They brought Vodun into North America. We're not talking about Haiti or South America, the Caribbean. We're talking about black people who were into North America. We maintained our traditions here as well. So there was Vodou in North America just like it was Vodou in Haiti. There was Hoodoo in North America, which is the Akan tradition, just like there's Obia in Jamaica and Winti in Suriname, which is the Akan traditions in those two areas. We maintained Akan tradition in North America without any having to wait for somebody outside to come bring us the Akan religion. We maintained it for hundreds of years up until this moment. Later on, these terms become utilized as catch-all terms for any African religion practice, but from the beginning, they have their own ethnic roots. So in the Hoodoo tradition, when you go to sleep, and sometimes people have what is called sleep paralysis, we'll say that a witch is riding you in the Hoodoo tradition. In the Akan tradition in North America, it feels like a spirit, an entity is sitting on your chest. You can barely breathe. You can't move your arms. You can't move your legs. You can't open your mouth. You can't make a sound. You can't sometimes open your eyes, and you're struggling, even sweating to a certain extent. You're reading about this in this text right here. It says, "Give to me my heart." Now, once you have your heart, that regulator of energy, now you have power. You can regulate power. Now you can move your arms. Now you can move your legs that were once fastened. Now you can open your eyes. Now you can open your mouth. Now you can invoke the forces in nature. Now you can gain your power. It says, now I have power over my arms, my legs, and so forth. Very often when somebody has a spirit or entity riding them, they're calling it sleep paralysis. When you get a chance to invoke the Abosom by name or invoke the ancestresses and ancestors, that invocation alone will repel that entity from you, and then you'll have the ability to move once again. That's a direct application, practically, from that text. That text is dealing with. So it's dealing with that in the spirit realm. It's dealing with that in the after-death state. So the exact same thing can happen in the after-death state. And that becomes a grave occurrence, because if you don't pass the balancing of the scales when you make your transition, then, again, you repel from the spirit realm, from the ancestors and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. Now you become earthbound, and now you are, set up to be possibly succumb to these other transient spirits who will try to influence you, attack you, control you, and so forth. And you need to have the capacity to repel them. This ritual prayer is dealing with somebody who made their transition, and that journey from making the transition to the ancestral realm can be fraught with the discarnate entities who are trying to drag the person and hold them into that earthbound state. But when the person invokes the Abosom, invokes the spirit, heart, and so forth, says, may my heart be with me, my Hati be with me. Now I have the spiritual heart, that power. I have the heart-lung complex, that animating energy, that vivifying energy. Now I can move my arms, move my legs, exercise power over my being so I can make it to the ancestral realm and repel these negative entities. That happens in the after-death state. That happens in the sleep state, but it also happens in the waking state. If you do not have heart, you can't repel the advances of somebody trying to influence you or control you. Some sisters allowing some ignorant male to control their mind, and they're abusive to them. And they feel like they can't leave because they don't have heart. They haven't invoked their spiritual heart. They're out of balance. But once they stimulate their spiritual heart and hearten themselves, they get out of that and overcome that emotional imbalance. They bring balance back to themselves, and they repel this Negro. And they break free, and they never turn back. They're not allowing themselves to be controlled, their movements to be controlled, their arms and legs and mouth and eyes to be shut and fastened and bound up. They free themselves literally. So it happens in the physical world, it happens in the dream state, it happens in the after-death state. The same is true when the whites and our offspring control the minds of our people. We're believing in the fictional cartoon character Jesus, and it gets to the point that if we think we're going against this fictional homosexual, our hearts start beating fast. We get controlled by fear. Heart starts racing. When your heart is racing because of what you perceive or what you believe and so forth, those things are not making your heart race. you're being controlled by discordant projection, false ideas. Sometimes individuals trying to influence you energically and so forth, ritually. But when you take control of your Ab and your Hati, the spiritual heart and the heart-lung complex, and that vivifying energy of the lung, stimulating the palpitations of the heart in a harmonious fashion, you start pumping blood and fire and so forth throughout your being. You stimulate yourself, you awaken yourself, and you break through all of that nonsense. But you have to equilibrate yourself. So that text is dealing with what happens in the physical world on a daily basis, in the dream state, in the after-death state. And the ritual invocations in that book are ritual invocations that you can use ritually to stimulate your spiritual heart, your Ab, reading those invocations in the language of ancient Kemet. But then we also have another ritual method as well. Let's read another text dealing with the heart as well so you can get some more perspective on this spiritual heart. And hold on one second, we just want to make sure. All right. As you see, in the text, they mentioned different divinities that are invoked Anpu to strengthen the leg, Sekhet as well. 3 different divinities, invoking them by name to stimulate, that freedom of animation, freedom of movement. Next, we're going to read the chapter of not allowing to be driven away, the heart of Ani from him in the spirit realm. So he said, this is what Ani says, the person who made his transition, but you can also apply this to yourself, not only when you make your transition, but even in the dream world, in the dream state, when you're engaging other spiritual entities, and in the physical world when you're engaging people on a regular basis. So he says, my heart of my mother, my Hati of my coming into existence. Not be there resistance to me in the judgment, not there be repulse to me by the divine chiefs. He's talking about when I'm judged, when my heart is judged, do not allow repulsion to happen. Do not allow resistance from the divine chiefs at this weighing of the heart. Do not make a separation from me in the presence of the keeper of the scales that we talked about. Talking about the heart, you are my ka within my body, forming and making strong my limbs. May you come forth to the place of happiness or beauty where we advance. Do not make to be foul my name in the shanit who make men instability. And it's talking about when he's in front of the weighing of the heart scales, because he knows he lived in harmony with divine order, and when he got out of harmony, he engaged in ritual practice to restore balance to himself, because he did that throughout the course of his life as an adult. He's saying, listen, I'm coming before the scales, my heart of my mother, my Hati of my coming to existence. Do not speak against me when the heart is being weighed against the scales. Why not? Because I lived in harmony with order, and I can prove it. I'm showing it, and I can demonstrate that. So the divine chief, please do not repulse me, as it says, not there be repulse to me. Do not repulse me from the spirit realm, because I have lived in harmony with divine order. It says, my heart of my mother. Of course, the heart is dealing with the blood. In Akan culture and various cultures, the blood of the mother, the matrilineal or matricircular blood, is how we are defined with regard to our ancestral clan. That determines inheritance, the transfer of wealth, and the transfer of rulership and authority through the mother's blood circle. So it says, my heart of my mother. And it's twice. My heart of my mother and my Hati of my transformations of my capital of coming into existence. So that's what it's dealing with there. One other short, let me see. I want to make sure if there was another short text we can check out real quick. Okay. I just want to make sure it's not the same text. Okay, there's another text real quick. The chapter of not allowing to be taken away, the Hati of a man from him in the spirit realm. So Ani says once again, hail the taker away of heart, the stealers of heart. talking about these divinities who snatch away the heart. When somebody engaged in disorder, the spirits come after the weighing of the heart. If you engage in disorder, they snatch it up and consume it because you were engaged in disorder, and then you repel from the spirit realm. And he's saying, hey, you divine taker away of heart, homage to you, divinities of eternity, possessors of everlastingness. Do not take away the heart of this Ani, this person Ani, with your fingers, and his Hati. Do not take it away, neither one. Do not make come into existence the words of evil against it, because it belongs, this heart of Ani, the heart of this great one of name, the mighty one. His words are in his limbs, goes forth his heart to inhabit his body. Pleasant is his heart to the deity, the heart of Ani. Victorious is he. He has gained power over it. Not has he said what has been done to it negatively. He has gained power over the limbs, his own limbs, has obeyed him, his own heart. He is thy Lord or Master. You are in his body. Not may you fall away. I have commanded that you should be obedient to me in the spirit realm. Also, Ani, victorious in peace, and so forth. So what they're talking about there is those spirits that will normally descend on the person when he doesn't pass the scale, the balancing of the scales of the heart. Then the spirits come and consume that heart. Then he's a spirit without a soul, without a heart, without a ka. There's a spirit of disorder hanging around, and they become, one of these wayward spirits of disorder, repelled from the ancestral realm, which is a negative existence in the, spirit realm. Ani is saying, listen, don't take my heart away from me. Don't take my hati away from me, my heart and lung complex of vivifying energy coming from the lungs, that animating energy, nor the energy of the heart that sends the fire through the blood and so forth. Don't take that away from me. Why? Because I lived in harmony with divine order throughout the course of my life. Allow me to go to the spirit realm and live in peace with the divine chiefs, with the divinities, the goddesses and gods, and so forth. So this is what we're talking about. Just like that takes place after death, the same thing happens in life. When you hearten yourself and you balance yourself, you equilibrate your energy, then you can overcome negative emotions. You can repel negative emotions. You can gain the power over your legs, your arms, your movement. That means you're in control of yourself. If you allow people to control you and make you emotionally unstable, then you don't have power or sekhem over the arms, the legs, the eyes, the mouth, and so forth. And they say, my eyes were closed, my mouth was shut, my legs were bound and my arms were bound and so forth. Let me free myself, open my eyes, open my mouth, free my arms, free my legs, and so forth. What they're saying is you didn't have control over yourself, therefore somebody else was controlling you. That is not part of our culture. We hearten ourselves, we embolden ourselves so we can regulate our emotional output, our energetic emanation. We don't allow other people to infect us. We don't allow misguided ideas that we foolishly incorporate to negatively program us and infect our behaviors and control our behaviors like slaves. So before we go forward with that, and one other thing with regard to the hati, the heart and lung complex, when you look at the forepart of the lion and it's showing the chest or the breast, that's the outer covering, the chest or the breast, and then, of course, inside you have the heart and lung complex. Right beneath, outside the pectorals and the chest and the breast region and the nipples and so forth are the two lungs. Now, as we talked about in our broadcast on the Ab and Hati, the forepart of the lion, the chest and the breast, as well as the determinative for the heart, connected to the nipples. The nipples are two poles of a battery within your body. Their primary function is the reception and transmission of energy received directly through those two poles, positive and negative poles, directly to the right and left lungs to stimulate the energy within the lungs. That is the primary function of the nipples. They are poles of a battery within your body. That's what they are, positive and negative. The secondary function of the nipples for females is to nurse children. But the primary function is the reception of energy from the Supreme Being through those two poles. The same is true if you look at the nose, as we talked about before. What's the primary function of the nose. The primary function of the nose is to breathe. Of course, the secondary function of the nose is your sense of smell. But even if you were ill and you were congested and you couldn't smell anything, that could pose a problem, because if you were going to go eat some food and the food was rotten and spoiled and you couldn't smell it and it looked okay, and then you eat it and you get sick because your sense of smell didn't warn you, because you were congested, that could pose a problem. But even if your sense of smell is hindered to a certain extent for a day or two, that's not a major problem. If your capacity to breathe, however, your primary function was hindered for a few minutes, then you're dead. The primary function of the nose is breathing. The secondary function of the nose is smelling. The primary function of the nipples they are the positive and negative poles within your body of electromagnetic energy. They are connected to the magnetosphere, the electromagnetic field surrounding your body. They receive electromagnetic energy from the magnetosphere of Earth, which is stimulated by the sun, of course, to stimulate the bronchial tubes, the electromagnetic energy within the air, within your body, and the spiritual energy within you. The secondary function is nursing. So, and we went into detail about that when we published our articles on Ya and Abba, Nekabet, and Wachet, as well as in the broadcast. And that, of course, destroys that silly notion that all people used to be females and the male body is an atrophied breast and all that idiocy coming from white lesbians and brainwashed Negroes who attempt to incorporate that dissexual nonsense into ancestral culture. So the Hati, heart and lung complex, pulling that vivifying energy into the lungs, stimulating the blood and purifying the blood within the heart. Of course, the blood leaves the heart. It is purified by the air in the lungs, returns to the heart, and then the heart pumps the blood out through the circulatory system, and the degenerated blood comes back through the heart, through the right side, is purified by the lungs, and then it's sent back out through the left side and so forth. It's like the sun rising and setting and so forth. So that whole Hati, heart and lung complex, they work together. This is the Ab and the Hati. Now, we're going to look in the chat room right quick, take a couple of phone calls, look in the chat room, make sure we didn't miss anything, and then we're going to get into certain aspects of ritual practice on how to hearten yourself, embolden yourself, so that you can equilibrate that life energy within yourself and overcome misguided emotionalism. Okay, one question: I've heard and read the word aura from so many different sources, read it is used in so many different ways. I don't have a clear understanding of what it is. I know it's not the soul or spirit, but I'm not sure what it is. Okay, so if you, in our broadcast, when we talk about the Samain and Sunsuma, the Kahibit, we go into detail about that. The aura in and of itself is the electromagnetic field that's around the body. Just like the Earth has an electromagnetic field, the magnetosphere, we have a magnetosphere as well. And that is the Kahibit, or the so-called aura, or the auric egg. So we go into detail about that in that particular broadcast dealing with the Kahibit. I just want to get to, okay, somebody touched on that as well in the chat room. Did I say? All right, so we have a phone call, and then we're going to get to ritual practice. Okay, Michelle number 6254 on the phone line. You got a question or a comment?
Hello?
Yeah.
I had a question. You know how you talked about when the spirit or whatever is like holding you down, you can't move. I also was told that sometimes when we sleep, we leave our bodies, and then when we try to get up and can't move, we can't move because we haven't came back to our bodies yet. Is that true or not?
But no. Can you say it again? You said when we sleep, you said sometimes you don't move your body. And what else did you say?
How you said that when you can't move, that sleep paralysis, that I was told that sometimes we leave our bodies in our sleep and that we can't get up and move if we haven't came back to our body yet. So once you connect back with your body, then you can move.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, sometimes that does occur. So sometimes people engage in, quote unquote, spirit walking or astral travel. Some people say different names for that. Out of body experiences. Sometimes people, from the time we're children, we don't even realize what we're experiencing. We think it's just a normal thing to be asleep at night, and then we, happen to look down and we see that we're up near the ceiling and we're looking down and, in our bed and looking at our body laying, asleep, at night. And we'll have those experiences as children, but if we're not raised in a culture that, deals with that, we just think it's normal, or we may think later on there's something wrong with it and we'll try to suppress those different things. So sometimes people do have out-of-body experiences, or they have, astral travel, spirit walking, and so forth. And sometimes that is the cause of, what they would call sleep paralysis. Sometimes, of course, people have physical issues, dietary issues, and other nervous system issues, and so forth. But sometimes people have discarnate, insamanfo, or non-related, and spirits that are trying to control certain individuals. And it's through invocation that we're able to repel them most effectively. So there are different reasons that takes place.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. May I say for the call. Okay. So we want to get to this notion of ritual practice. So we talked about the philosophy behind these things. One of the means by which you can engage in ritual practice to hearten yourself is literally through ritual invocation. Ritual invocation, even, for example, if you utilize the language of ancient Kemet, if you've got a text like the one we were just reading from, reading the actual language itself, not reading it in English, we were just reading that translation, but the language itself, the vibrations themselves of the words, the way they are structured, invoking the different divinities in that ritual prayer, it is an invocation to repel negative entities and hearten yourself, embolden yourself so you can strengthen your spiritual heart and repel these entities so you can maintain balance. So when your heart is on the scale, quote unquote, of Maat, you can maintain balance. It doesn't tip the scale. Another way to maintain balance, and this is something that we do as part of Ebo and Yam, when we talked about Ebo and Yam 2 weeks ago, ritual movement, when we talked about that practice that we have in the Yakarmo Nation in North America, Fanti Nation in North America, engaging in ritual movement to stimulate the Ba, the divine living energy, moving in the form of our Achinebwa animal totem, and through moving our bodies in those forms, we not only strengthen ourselves physically, we also regulate the flow of energy through our spirit body, stimulate our Ba and Baek, divine living energy, and so forth. But one of the things that we do in that process, and one segment of it you can do at any time, at any place, wherever you are in the midst of a situation, is the notion, there's a specific movement, which is a balancing movement, where we engage, there's a specific balancing on one leg movement that you can actually see. Actually, when you look in our book, On the Origin of the Term Yoga, in the appendix, we have a image of a page from a hieroglyphic dictionary, and one of the specific movements you'll see, it's actually called Ab, dealing with heart. In fact, let me find a page for that real quick, just so you can download it real quick. It's basically what it is, standing on one leg, holding two arms out, and you're balancing yourself. I'll pull up the page real quick. But what you're doing is you're engaged in a process of equilibration. If you stand on one leg, of course, if you're just standing up and you lift one leg, you will fall over unless you shift your energy and shift your weight onto the one leg, and you begin to balance yourself so you won't fall over. And once you attain that balance, then and you're focused, you can maintain that balance. That particular image is on page 37 in our book, On the Origin of the Term Yoga, just for reference. So, near the bottom. So when you shift your energy on one foot or any other form, you're balancing yourself. You're engaged in a process of equilibrating your weight. Now, because of this new condition, at first you were standing on both legs, everything was fine. If you lift your leg up, then if you maintain your exact same posture, just lift up your leg, you will fall over. Because of this new condition where you're no longer on two legs, you're only on one, you have to shift. You have to equilibrate your weight so that you can balance yourself so that you won't fall over. And once you find that center of balance, that equilibrium, then you're focused again. Then everything is stable again. In the same fashion, when people assault you with ideas, energetic projections, intentions, actions, and so forth, physically and spiritually, and it begins to affect, if you receive their energetic projections, their mental projections, spiritual projections, and so forth, just throughout the course of everyday life. Sometimes you're feeling somebody's negative energy or they're engaged in some activity that's negative towards you. Some people, if you allow that to overwhelm you, then you're constantly in stress, constantly tense, constantly, going through anxiety and so forth, anger, heated up, mad, or fearful or whatever, all kinds of discordant emotions. You're faced with an influx of energy. You've allowed it to control you and dominate you. But you need to find your equilibrium. And once you find your equilibrium, you can repel these negative projections. You can equilibrate yourself. So just like if you physically engage that process, physically engage that movement on a daily basis, literally practicing that balancing movement. Once you train yourself to automatically balance yourself physically, and you're used to sending that energy, every time you balance yourself, you're sending energy directly up to the center of balance within your body, including the center of balance between your two ears. You're forcing energy to that region to balance your body consciously. Once you're consistently doing that on a regular basis and you're accustomed to balancing yourself like that, then you can also transfer that skill spiritually to achieve emotional balance at will. Even if you're in a situation that you come across, even if you engage the physical part first, you find yourself in a situation, somebody's telling you certain things, you get off the phone and you feel imbalanced, and you immediately utilize that specific posture, that balancing posture. You're forcing your body to attain balance, literally. And once you force your body to attain balance and you maintain that posture for a few seconds or a minute or more, now you're forcing your energetic body, your spirit body, to attain the same kind of balance. You're making balance happen. And you become accustomed to going from imbalance to balance. You can practice that at any time, anywhere, to the extent that when you engage certain situations in life or come in contact with people in life that normally would throw you off balance, you have the capacity and you're accustomed to re-establishing your equilibrium because you know how to do that. And when you do that on a consistent basis, now you hearten yourself. Once you establish that balance, now you're heartened, now you're focused, and you can repel discordant energy. You can relentlessly challenge disorder. It's hard to challenge disorder when you are imbalanced, and you allow someone to throw you off your balance. So first you equilibrate yourself, and then you relentlessly challenge disorder. Two different means by which to achieve that balance. Number one, through those invocations themselves. Ritual prayer in and of itself is a means by which you can repel the discordant projections and influence from outside entities, as well as disrupt and destroy what has been programmed into you by the white snare string to brainwash black people throughout the course of your life since you were a child. Things that cause fear within you. Fear is not natural, of course, as we talked about last week. The term Ohun means knowledge with regard to divine wisdom, but ehu means fear. We transform ehu, fear, into ohu, which is knowledge, to see, to perceive, to understand, to recognize. When you fear something, you don't understand. You don't know how to handle something. And then you become discordant, erratic and so forth. But when you transform ehu, fear, into ohu, knowledge, perception, knowledge of what is going on and how to handle the situation, now you can achieve some equilibration, and that leads to consistent balance. Once you overcome fear through balancing yourself physically and then spiritually, overcome misguided emotionalism, overcome misguided conditioning, as well as, that's all internal, but then also overcoming the projections of someone from outside of yourself. Now what you're doing is you've achieved balance, and now you can repel these entities perpetually. Okay, so we're going to take another couple of calls. Give us 1 second right quick. We want to check something. All right, so we're going to have a couple of more calls on the phone line. And before we take that couple of calls, there are 12 minutes left in the broadcast online. If you want to listen beyond 11 o'clock, you must call in within the next 12 minutes so you can get on the phone line. Because if you don't get on the phone line before 11 o'clock, then it will cut off online. You won't be able to hear beyond 11. Only the people who are already on the phone will be able to continue to listen. And we won't go too much beyond 11, but we'll probably go a couple of minutes beyond 11. So call it number 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. Okay, so we're going to take a couple more calls right quick. Okay, Michiawo, on the phone line number 6327. You had a question or a comment? That's up number 6327. Okay, you're just listening? All right, so we're going to go to the next.
All right, yes.
Okay, Michiawo on the phone line. You had a question or a comment?
Individuals soon, once they know they have not, passed the weight scale, do they stay wayward for a good long period, or is there a brief period when I'm not sure how long do they remain earthbound if they have not passed the weight scale? Is it like 100, 200? How long is it, like the time frame of a person that, let's say, is not badly disordered, but that's not really granted to transcend to the ancestor realm? That's the question.
That it really varies. So it's not a specific time frame. Some people are, hanging out like that for 100 years or more. Some people 200 or 300 years. It varies from situation to situation. What kind of family were they part of? What kind of clan were they part of? What kind of relationships that they developed? What kind of descendants do they have? Are the descendants that they have receptive to their energy? Will they draw them into a womb? Are they the kind of spirits who will be repelled from the womb of somebody? For example, so it varies. So, for example, if you have people who are engaged in culture, engaged in ritual practice, and, the male and the female are engaged in AKANFO NANASOM, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion, and they deal with their Umsamapa on a consistent basis, deal with their own Akra on a consistent basis, deal with the Abosom on a consistent basis, regulate their emotional balance. They hearten themselves, and they're not controlled by misguided emotionalism, but they regulate their emotional output or energetic output in a harmonious fashion. They attune to divine wisdom, to their aku and so forth. They align with their craft, regulate their energy of their body, and so forth. When those kinds of individuals have children, when it's time for them to copulate and have children, the kind of children that will be drawn into the womb are ancestors or ancestresses who are living the same kind of harmonious kind of lifestyle. And the Unsamanfa will usher those kinds of spirits into the womb of that individual, of the mother. They will, just by virtue of the spiritual work that they do, they will repel those other kind of wayward, this kind of entities who weren't in harmony with order. That womb region or space will be blocked from an individual like that. Their energy will not allow them. They'll be repelled just like a magnet repelling another one across the table. But if they have descendants who weren't necessarily living in harmony with order, people who were controlled by lust and vice and so forth, and those people are still having children, it's depending on the situation and depending on the different lines and lineages and so forth, they may be drawn into that specific line, lineage, blood circle, and so forth. So it really depends on, it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on the relationship people have had with their ancestresses and ancestors, with their descendants, what kind of activity they were engaged in, what kind of karmic relationships they've developed. Will they be repelled by certain family members? Will they be received by others based on what those family members are doing in the physical world and how they're conducting themselves and what kind of energetic output that they have and so forth? It's on a case-by-case basis.
And another thing I had to ask, in regards to the baboon dog that eats the spirit, or the alligator, I'm kind of mixed up between the two. But I think if they were, like, say, criminal, in a way, when their souls or their spirits be devoured by one of those entities, to be cleansed out instead of suffering?
Well, when it's talking about that divinity with the head of a crocodile and the body of a hippopotamus, which is Amut, that divinity Amut, sitting by the scale, waiting to see what's going to happen, and if the heart is going to be, eaten up and so forth. What happens is, you feel these, pangs of anxiety and guilt and everything else when you engage in disorder. So your heart sinks, your heart becomes heavy, and it feels like, a quote-unquote gnawing sensation and all of that, feeling like Amut is feeding on the heart and so forth. So if somebody engages in disorder consistently, they make their transition, you'll notice that the Ba bird, the divine living energy, that little Ba bird is sitting by the scales watching to see what's going to happen. The Ka is watching to see what's going to take place. If the person is found to be out of harmony with order, then the Ka separates from the individual. The Ba does not return, so they don't have any more divine living energy animating their spirit body. They don't have a divine consciousness guiding them, and the heart is taken away. And that simply means that if they don't have a heart, they're not heartened, they're not emboldened, they're not relentlessly challenging disorder, then they're the kind of individuals that allow other individuals to control them, other influences to control them. So there's somebody without a heart, somebody without divine living energy, somebody without a quote-unquote spiritual head. So they're just pulled in various different directions.
And for the Achi waterfall, the spirits of disorder, the white disorder, when they pass and they are earthbound, but to some of them, I think most of them that, let's say, take on any information that was presented from the Egyptian or, that was written, are they aware that when they transition, that they're not going to be seeing no so-called heaven realm? They're just going to be earthbound, or they're just plain stupid? That's another question.
You said the ones who have been studying this kind of information?
No, we have some Achiwa who study some of this information, and they might come to the conclusion that they might not reach that heaven that they so-called believe in, or this nonsense. Do they feel so that they're going to be earthbound? Some that know, besides the ones that don't know, because when you marry them, anyway, they don't know most of it. The ones that, of course, the upper ones, into information, they feel that they're going to transition this.
what happens is they know that all of this information dealing with, the deities, spirit realm, Sekhet itself, and all of that, they know they have no access to that. They know that the only kind of entities that they will encounter is their own, criminal type, lower level vibration kind of earthbound type entity. They know that's all they have, and they're just going back and forth from that lower level of being earthbound right back into another white womb and so forth, and they're going through that cycle. As opposed to us, we go to the ancestral realm, live in a different realm amongst our Nsamanfo, and then before we reincarnate, we go to Nyame wa Nyame, and we're given our divine function, assigned a specific abosom, and then we're sent back into the ancestral realm to await Bebra or reincarnation. But the whites and offspring, they know that they don't have access to that. So their key is to, number one, keep us away from our ancestral religion or faith, because they don't want us to recognize that, so they try to ridicule it or make us ridicule it and not want to have anything to do with it. They try to inject false notions of dissexuality, homosexuality, or anything that will keep us from wanting to embrace our ancestral religion. So they either try to keep us away from it totally, or if they feel like they can't keep us away from it, they seek to pollute it by trying to integrate themselves into it, and that makes us want to reject it as well. Or the brainwash amongst us will say, okay, if the cracker's in there and in part of this, then I want to be a part of it, and it lures them into self-destructive criminal type behavior and lures them into a position where when they make their transition, they'll be, brainwashed black people like that will be earthbound and have a loss of heart as well, because they were engaged with spirits of disorder on a consistent basis. They were consistently rejected their tribe throughout the course of their lives. And let me just say, there's 90 seconds left in the online broadcast, so if you want to listen beyond 11 o'clock, you have a little bit over a minute to call in, 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635.
Okay, so the key to the Achiwafo, since they know they're not going to transition like they jogger into most of our people's heads, certain religions, like the Christian and stuff, about this so-called heaven, that, by polluting everything else that we've done in our natural state and being with ancestral culture, that they try to lure us away so we remain earthbound just like them in their criminal activity. Because if I go to this, you cannot. So I'm gonna do everything possible to make you stay away from it, so you stay earthbound. That's the key.
Exactly. It's no different than somebody who's a heroin addict and they influence somebody else to become a heroin addict as well. And when they see that person, seeking to give them assistance, they try to influence them in a way where they remain a heroin addict, because they don't want them to fulfill their potential. And as long as that other person is a heroin addict with them, then it's more likely that they will be able to exercise control over that person. If that person decides they're going to break free from that addiction, they know they will never have control over that person again once they break free from the heroin and the other one is still on heroin. The one who remains on heroin, they know they can't control anybody else. So the best thing they can do is either try to make the person have no desire or try to ridicule the idea of not being a drug addict, or, continue to feed them drugs to keep them hooked. As long as they can keep them hooked and turn their minds away from freedom and purification and so forth, then they're more likely to be able to control the person. So whites and offspring are like these heroin addicts. They want to keep us hooked on this heroin, on this drug, because they know once we break free, we'll not only free ourselves and make ourselves independent, we will exterminate them. Okay, so it looked like the call dropped. So we have a couple more phone calls we want to get to. Okay, Michelle on the phone line, number 5251. You had a question or comment?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure my voice, my call is clear. Okay. Hi. I was just calling because first I'd like to thank you for all the information that you're bringing forward about ancestral religion and spirituality, because you seem to be dropping information that nobody in the world is dropping, and that's the first thing I wanted to say. But my question is, what is your opinion on the mother in Baltimore who beat her son in Baltimore during the riots? Because basically what I wanted to ask about domestic abuse, I noticed that you talk about domestic abuse only from like a male on female perspective, but there's been studies, and I even see this too firsthand, like a lot of women attacking men physically, and it's like they say the studies came out saying that domestic abuse is almost high, is just as high as male on female, the other way around, like 50-50, or even higher with female and male attacking males, but it's just men are not, they're too ashamed, I guess, to report it or whatever, or they feel like nothing's going to be done or something like that. So basically misandry. So I wanted to ask you, do you think it's okay, like, for a male to defend himself against, like, a woman? Because a lot of people think that, domestic abuse is just a one-sided thing, like male on female, and the studies are coming out that a lot of females are attacking men at the same ratio or even higher, because they can call the cops and then say that, oh, he did this, even though I've seen men get locked up for just a she said thing, not even like she didn't have any marks. There's been men getting arrested for just based off what the woman said, and wasn't any proof, like cops going to people's jobs, locking guys up because the wife said that they got into an argument at the house, and then the cops went up to the guy's house and locked him up. And so basically I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of misandry in the U.S. This don't apply to like Africa and the Caribbean. This is specifically like a U.S. issue, like feminism and misandry, because like the court system, like even Walter Scott spent time in jail for child support. That's the reason why he was running away from that cop that shot him. And so basically what I'm saying is that, like, what is your perspective on women attacking men? Do you think that's right, or do you think, because I've listened to a couple of your broadcasts and you went in on domestic abuse, but you only addressed it from like a male, attacking females, which of course is wrong. But I've never heard. It's like, because a lot of people, what I'm saying is a lot of people in the conscious community, they seem to have this one-sided view that only men are evil, or men and women are superior and women are gods, and they can never be wrong. Like even on the just past Mother's Day, we know Mother's Day is a fictional holiday, we know that, but like a lot of the anti-male rhetoric, like, oh, you black men ain't fathers, the woman is the mother and the father. Like it's always like some type of anti-male rhetoric in the so-called conscious community. I wanted to get your opinion on that. Because in Africa, like from what I've seen when I went to Africa, like there's like gender roles. Like women ain't just disrespecting men, or men ain't disrespecting women. But it's really one-sided. It's like in the U.S. So I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Okay, so, there's two things. So, on one hand, when you talk about the gender roles and it's different in our traditional culture, of course, and the traditional culture when the people are not infected with Islam and all of that. So, when they're not infected with that, the foundational relationship is Nyame wa Nyame, Aminet Amen, Mawu and Lisa, the balance of male and female. So then that extends throughout the culture when people are not, infected by, like male-dominant Islam and Christianity and all of that, and they're not promoting God without a goddess and all that. So when we get over here, you have the two extremes. You have the white male dissexual culture, which is where the patriarchy comes in from the white male perspective. So you have a white male deity, and all the women are inferior. And that's, of course, the kind of dominant culture. But then you have the subculture of the white female dissexual, and she's promoting that the female is superior, and promoting the whole notion of the matriarchy, and promoting the whole notion of, in the beginning, like the pseudo-theosophical nonsense. In the beginning, there was just women, and there was just the great goddess, and all the gods came from the great goddess. That all comes from white, dissexual, lesbian Europeans trying to promote sexual imbalance amongst our people. There was never a time when there was just Aminet and not Amen. There was never just a time when there was just Amen and not Aminet. So both of those extremes exist in the minds of the whites and offspring. And then those of us who embrace that nonsense, we try to weave it in and make it metaphysical and make it, sacred, and it's pure stupidity. So the black man is God, that's an idiotic notion that comes from white people who are inferior. They would like to have a God complex, and they wanted to be the deity. And then that inferiority and that ignorance is passed on to our people when we feel powerless. We want to say something that makes us feel good, and we'll say, well, I'm not a man, I'm God, which is, it's nonsense. And they know it's nonsense, but it makes them feel good. And then on the other hand, you have Negroes who have, latched on to the white female dissexual nonsense, and they'll say the black woman is God, or, goddess was original and all the other nonsense, or black men were, like we talked about earlier, and we mentioned in the other Ab and Hati broadcast when they try to promote this idea that the male body is a, degenerate female body and all that sexual nonsense. All of that comes from the minds of the whites and their offspring, and brainwashed Negroes latch onto it because it makes them feel good. And they can only make you feel good if you're brainwashed with white culture. If you're not brainwashed with white culture, you know it's idiotic. And even the people who are brainwashed, deep down inside, they know it's idiotic, but it still makes them feel good. So they run with it anyway because nobody, not so many people challenge them on. So when we get away from the whites and their offspring, get away from their perverse culture, when we purge that from our mind, then we get back to balance. And this is what we're talking about, emotion heartening, or equilibrating ourselves, returning to balance, reestablishing balance. When we get into like domestic violence and so forth, for example, you mentioned that the female who attacked her son. Now I saw clips. I saw images all over the internet and everything, and then you see some clips of people talking and stuff like that. I didn't even have to watch the video because I already knew what was going down. And I didn't even have to watch any interviews because I already knew what was going down. The whites and offspring promoted that image. They want that image to be shown. They want to see a young black male being emasculated by a black female. If you do a flashback, a time warp, and just put some clothes of an enslaved female and enslaved male on them and put them on a plantation and show that image, what you're seeing is the female beating her son and looking back at the master saying, see, master, I'm whooping him too. See, pat me on the head. You know what I'm saying? This is what they want to show us. They want us to say what you should be doing is beating on your sons as opposed to killing the white police who are gunning down your sons. They're going to celebrate the beating of a black male as opposed to the gunning down of a white police officer. So that's the white and offspring. Then brainwashed Negroes jump on it and they start applauding. So they run that game, and we know that game. That's, of course, they're going to do that. So, of course, we have to have our own, there's a reason we have our own media, our own way of getting information out and showing what's really going on. And most people who have some basic sense of consciousness recognize that the only reason that picture went around and became viral, and, of course, the crackers put her all over TV and everything else, is because she was emasculating her son and telling the world, listen, we should obey those people who murder us, and even if it means that we're going to emasculate, and even they would have probably celebrated her if she killed her son. They would have given her, a reality show or something. So that's what they do. So once we get beyond, recognize what the game is, then we understand, reject the whites and their offspring, their culture, and their pseudo-religion, we get back to our own. And as I said before, if you have a penny and a bowling ball and you hold them up at the same height and let them go, they're going to hit the ground at the same time because the force of gravity will equilibrate them, even though they're different in size and weight and shape. That force in nature will render them equal. So when we align to Maat and Maat, those forces in nature of law and balance, then we're going to automatically, no matter where we are as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, we're going to automatically be unified and equilibrated when we adhere to the law. And there's no imbalance in that. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about equilibrating ourselves by forcing ourselves physically to make ourselves balance our bodies. Once you balance your body, then you can also force your spirit body to engage in that same process of equilibrating yourself as well. There is an epidemic of, for example, I recall a show somebody did, a morning talk show, and they decided to set aside a day where they just had men call in who were abused by their wives and girlfriends. Then they had a whole bunch of calls and a whole bunch of men telling their stories. Of course, they didn't give their names and everything. And it is an epidemic where, and some females know this, just like there's some males know that they can just beat on the women and break their jaws and run over them with a car and back up over them, and the women will come back and nothing's going to happen. There's some females who know that if they do certain things and they beat on the male or, get something and hit them, get a bat or, do whatever, stab them, whatever it is, they know that they can do that. And if the male responds, they immediately call 911. And when the police get there, they're going to go get the male, no matter what happens, snatch him up, take him to jail. He gets a record. His life for the next 10, 15, 20 years is ruined with regard to his capacity to, work and generate funds and everything else. And many of them do that deliberately. Some of them, they've never been touched a day in their life, but they'll get on 911, call and say, hey, he attacked me. Police come over, snap him up. Or if he calls, like you said, of course, and a lot of those brothers who were calling in, if he calls and says, hey, she's attacking me, she shot at me, she stabbed me, or she punched me in the face, or hit me with this or blunt object or whatever it is, the police will come out, and invariably they'll say, oh, well, this is nothing. I mean, you should be able to handle her. What are you talking about? We're not going to waste our time and everything else.
Right.
So if he strikes back, he's going to jail. If he doesn't strike back, she can do whatever she wants, and the police aren't going to do anything. Now, of course, so what is the remedy for that kind of thing? Now, number one, we're talking about ancestral religion. Of course, first and foremost, it's not a situation of women shouldn't hit men and men shouldn't hit women. Adults don't hit adults. If you see a lioness and a lion, if a lioness, tries to claw a lion, they know they might get killed. If a lion tries to attack a lioness, he knows he might get, killed by some other ones. They know some claws will come out. Animals respect one another because hyenas, they know that if they attack another hyena, male or female, they might get their neck bitten off or something. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with us. Adults don't attack adults for no reason. If you have a justifiable reason to somebody's trying to kill you and you defend yourself or something like that, that's a different thing. But just because you're mad or frustrated, you go out and attack somebody, that's, adults don't do that. If you participate in white culture, you do that. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't, you don't. For example, when people say, well, I just couldn't control myself, he knows how to press my button. Or I couldn't control myself, she knows how to press my button. If that person's employer said the exact same thing to them, they wouldn't haul off and punch the employer because they don't want to lose their job. So somehow they have the control not to punch their employer, whether it's a male or a female, but when they get home, they know typically they can get away with it, so they're going to attack the person. If they would snatch some food away from a person and throw it in the garbage because they were mad, they wouldn't do that. If it was a pit bull sitting there eating and didn't have a leash on, they wouldn't snatch the food away from the pit bull because they know something's going to happen. So people do what they think they can get away with if they're, brainwashed, if they're following white culture. So the key for us is we embrace our own culture and you don't get involved with those kind of Negroes, and you can, when you deal with your in Samanfo, you deal with your own craft, you begin to recognize who's who before you get into a relationship with them. If you're already in a relationship and it starts turning out like that, then you're under no obligation to remain with these individuals. You cut them off immediately and forever. And there's no such thing as, well, I'm still in love. You were never in love or in law with the person in the first place. That's why when you understand what divine love and divine law really is, you know it has nothing to do with misguided lust. So it's easy, very easy to cut them off and never return and never even think about returning and only deal with people who are operating on the same level. So it's nothing wrong. It's not about, we need to give people a chance and we don't need to give people anything. If you're an adult, you deal with an adult. If the person is not an adult, then you cut them off, and that's it. Then it's over.
Right.
And you don't go back on that. So that's how we have to deal with that.
Right. Medasi for that. Because it was good you brought that up, because there was a while back, this lady named Marissa Alexander, who they were trying to say, I think she had a stand your ground law in Florida. She shot at her husband, and they said that the stand your ground law didn't work for her, and she got time for that. But when you actually dig into the case, it wasn't a self-defense. She actually came back in the house and tried to shoot her ex-husband or ex-boyfriend or whatever while his son was there, and she went like on a rampage, and then and then they locked her up, and then you seen her face all over the internet saying that it was unjustified that she's locked up or whatever. Like, because a lot of these, a lot of women, they go on a rampage, and here in the U.S. because the system, the system is like, it's Willie Lynch. A lot of people want to say the Willie Lynch letter is fake, but that, you could see it, that a lot of the they set it up where the male is always going to get penalized no matter what the woman do. I see it every day, and me, I'm a young man. I'm like in my 20s, so I don't like a lot of women in my age group are completely gone. So what I'm doing personally is I'm just going because I traveled to other countries. I've been to Brazil, been to Africa, Nigeria, and basically what I'm gonna do is I'm saving up my money to move over there, because the women in the black women in other countries, like if you go to countries where white people are a minority, like if you go to Europe or something, it's like the same mentality as the U.S. But if you go to countries where it's almost no white people, the gender roles or the it's more harmonious. Like everything is more like you don't see a lot of debaucherous behavior, and like here a lot of the women in my age group, they act like Nicki Minaj, they're real ratchet or really religious. Like for example, you said on one of your broadcasts that a lot of these women wear weaves because the men won't. Seen a lot of men, even on Facebook, saying, I don't want to date a woman that wears a weave, and then you have women attacking them saying, and telling me that's misogyny. A woman that they can't wear a weave or they shouldn't wear. They don't even want to hear nothing. Like they'll attack you from suggesting don't wear. It's not always, the dude is just self-hating black dude and he can't get a woman with natural hair.
Hold up, you broke up. Okay, it looks like the call dropped. I was saying that the call dropped. You were chopped. It was choppy for a second, and then the call dropped. So I don't know if you can. But it's after 11, so the caller won't be able to call back in. But but it still goes back to, those different things are happening. And it all goes back to where do we get this idea to be engaged in self-hatred? Oh, can you hear? Okay. All right, so it dropped. But the self-hatred comes from us embracing spirits of disorder, the Achiwadiefo, the whites and their offspring. When we reject them, number one, their culture, number two, and their pseudo-fake religions, number three, then we start embracing naturally values that are connected to reality. We embrace divine order. We embrace the divine balance of male and female. And when we do that, of course, just like you have millions of people who think God is a white man named Jesus, and they get on their knees and pray to a fictional cartoon character, a bisexual, homosexual, fake deity, and think that he woke them up this morning, which is insane. But then once they break free from that nonsense, then they totally reject it. And for example, through the Kuku Tuntun, the ancestral jurisdiction, we've had thousands of people who have rejected that perversity. Used to be into it. Some people used to be ministers, but they rejected that nonsense. So in the same way, when we introduce people to real culture, you'll find that a large percentage of them, once they get a chance to actually be introduced, and they're not introduced to pseudo-culture by like some Nuwapians or some, Moors and Hebrews and people foolishly identifying themselves with these foolish titles and Muslims and everything else that are running interference to make it appear that we are the same as them. And when people come in contact with them and say, well, these people are insane, I don't want to have anything to do with that Afrocentric stuff, and they never really got to real culture. So once we get to people and actually avail them of their actual ancestral culture, the vast majority of the people that we are able to connect with, they're, open to their own ancestral culture. And you'll find that just like you have brainwashed males who will transform their mindset, you have brainwashed females who will transform their mindset as well. So it's based on what we do, and it's our responsibility, because the whites and offspring are going to continue their program. They're going to continue their program of attempting to brainwash each and every black person on the face of the earth. So it's our responsibility to break through that programming, that perversity, and restore our people and eradicate our enemies. All right, so we have one more call on the phone line. Okay, Michio, number 8885. You had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I want to ask you real quick. We were talking about, eradicating the Achuwadi foe. How, once we do that, how do we make sure that they don't come back spiritually? Who do we commune with? Because, when you were speaking earlier about them being, earthbound or whatnot, and then they're able to come back through another womb and all that. Okay, so what do we do to keep them from coming back spiritually too? And who do we commune with to keep them from who do we commune with spiritually to keep them from coming back here?
Well, first and foremost, people come through their descendants. Now, if they don't have any more descendants, then there's nobody for them to return through. If their descendants are eradicated, then they don't have any descendants to come through. However, there are some who further back, hundreds of years or maybe thousands of years that polluted some black blood circle. And so they would try to come through that line, going further back. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the way you repel discordant entities or disordered entities is by being ordered, because order repels disorder. So as long as you're functioning in an ordered fashion, you will repel them. They won't have the capacity to enter into such a womb space that's ordered. They'll be repelled. It's the same thing with your immunity. When your immunity is sound, then you repel, bacteria and toxins and stuff like that. If your immunity is compromised, then you get assaults about things that normally bounce off. When we engage in traditional culture and live in harmony with order, we engage in, divine law, which is the expression of order, but divine hate is the impression of order. And that impression or imprinting of order upon created entities, including our families, repels discordant, discarnate spirits, and they won't be able to, even if they wanted to, come back through one of our blood circles.
Okay.
So it's all about order, realigning with order. And that's what ancestral religion is, to realign ourselves with divine order, ritual.
Okay.
Okay, so that was your question?
Oh, right, yes, okay. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, what's up?
Okay.
Okay, so just want to go through this chat room right quick to make sure we didn't miss anything. All right, so I'm just checking this out. Someone said, did the playback end on the phone? No, so if people who are on the phone line should still be able to hear. But there was one last question that says, I'm going through a divorce right now. I know I made the right decision to leave, but I still feel an emotional attachment and have contemplated going back to alleviate it. So the question, I think the question fell off, but if the question is, if you knew you made the right decision, but you still have a emotional attachment, on one hand, that's a conditioning that's within yourself, of course, having been involved with the individual. On the other hand, it may be some of that energetic projections from the other individual trying to draw on you, or at the same time, you also get interference coming from sometimes the deceased relatives of other individuals, as well as their living relatives who are trying to, they're projecting that desire or yearning for you to reconnect and things like that. But that has nothing to do with you. If you know that that's the correct thing, then that's the correct thing. And every time you feel a misguided pull towards disorder, you realign with your own crop. We talked about the head washing ceremony, soul washing ceremony a couple of weeks ago, and then this whole notion of equilibration through this ritual practice, including these ritual prayers. But, in the Pert Imheru, the chapter dealing with preservation of the heart, the chapter of keeping the heart, a chapter of not allowing the heart to be taken away from a person, those different chapters. Reading those chapters, that's a ritual invocation in and of itself to strengthen your Ab, your heart, and your Hati, the heart-lung complex. But in other forms, just dealing with that ritual piece, with that ritual balance, any form of balancing forces the energy within your body up to the point in your head, between your ears and so forth, that allows you to achieve that state of equilibrium. And when you consistently engage that process, you begin to allow your energy in your body to achieve equilibrium as well, and you'll be able to exercise that at will, and you can do that at any time, any day, any time throughout the course of the day or night. Even just lifting your foot up and standing on one leg, forcing yourself to balance, you begin to force yourself to achieve some semblance, some means of balance. And then when you remain in that posture for a longer period, then you begin to force spiritually the equilibration of your emotional energy as well. But you, of course, you also go to your cross, the shrine for your cross, soul, your divine consciousness, and invoke that divinity as well, because that's key. All right. Okay, so it's 11:30. We're going to end it here. We're going to be posting a notification for tomorrow's show, which you're going to want to tune into. We're going to put that out. And if you want to connect with us on Blog Talk, just click the follow button. Then you'll be on the mailing list, and any information that we send out, you'll automatically receive that. Follow us on Twitter as OG.fo, on YouTube as OG.fo, on Facebook, it's Afuraitkaitnit. They've been forcing people to change their names on Facebook. So since we started, we were Afuraitkaitnit on Facebook, but now they have people no longer using, different usernames, and you have to use your legal name. That's what they're forcing people to do. They'll shut your thing down. So they make you just use your first and last name. So I just have my first and last name, which is Kwesi Akan. Of course, my legal name is Kwesi Ra Nehem Patah Akan. So I'm Kwesi Akan on Facebook. But if you type in OG.fo or Afuraitkai, I still have that in parentheses. So you'll still be able to get it. The direct Facebook link is facebook.com/Afuraitkai.Afuraitkai. Or you can just type in Kwesi Akan or OG.fo and it'll show up. Follow us there, and we have an AKANFO NANASOM group on Facebook. And we also have our separate social media network that's private called Afuraitkaitnit NANASOM Tontan Ancestral Religion Network. The link is Afuraitkai-NANASOM Afuraitkaitnit.ning.com, Ning.com. And that's a separate social media network that we pay for as private, so people can join. You create profiles, post blogs and discussions and videos and everything else. And we also post all of our notifications, any updates, any communication that we have on that site. It's a way for people to connect who are engaged in the same kind of study from here as well as around the world. And a way for us to reach out to, everyone and connect and not be concerned about being filtered or sanctioned by Facebook and these other social media networks. So, and finally, once again, we sent out the information we talked about earlier for individuals who would like to become distributors of the work. Of course, when you go to the Unhoma page on the website, you can do that. But then we also we mentioned earlier in the show, some individuals wanted to become distributors, but they were not able, because they're unemployed, they're not able to generate the funds. They want to know if we could do consignment for the first set of books, send them out, and then once they sell them, they can pay us back and continue that process. Because we print on demand, we typically don't have any books in inventory to save on printing costs. We get an order, we print on demand, and that way we only utilize ink to print things out precisely for the orders that we receive. So the approach that we're using with regard to consignment is a two-pronged approach for individuals who would like to engage in that process because you don't have the funds for the startup cost to purchase the first set of books wholesale. If you just share our Unhoma link, our publications link to all of your social media networks, the more people who order and become aware of our publications, because we don't sell them in stores, we sell them directly from the website, the more people who become aware of our publications and our 16 books and that they're only range between $8 and $11, the more orders we receive, the more we're able to print out, in addition to those orders, a handful of additional books where we could send those out if you don't have the funds, and we'll be able to send them out, and then you can pay us back once you begin to sell them. So the more people who make orders, the more capacity we have to actually print out additional books outside of our regular orders to be able to do consignment for people. So just send that information out. For people who are not interested in becoming a distributor, but do support the work and would like to support this initiative of assisting people to become self-employed, those who, are unemployed and want to become entrepreneurs right now, send the information out, as well as if you like any purchase that you make of our books, that allows us to not only, send you the books out, but also print out some additional books so these people can go out and begin to sell these books, spread the information, and employ themselves at the same time. So any purchase of our books will assist in that effort, as well as any donation of $15 or more. We will send you one or more of our books anyway. So just let us know which one you would like. With that two-pronged approach of, selling more books and sharing the information with all your contacts, that will allow us to generate more revenue so that we can not only fill all of our orders, but also print additional books to get them out to the people who would like to begin to work immediately. And we know once those people get those books, they will be able to sell them. Of course, they'll be able to pay us back and order more books and sell them, and the word will be spreading out all across the country. And we do need distributors in different states. We have a few people who are distributing right now. We need this information in the hands of adults as well as youth in every state as well as in different parts of the world. We do get orders periodically from different parts of the world, like the Netherlands or the continent, or we've had people in, military bases in so-called Near East order, periodically. So the work is getting out, and of course the free books are getting out. But if people would like to, assist in that process of getting the information out on a wider scale, any purchase will assist us with that. Any donation, of course, will assist with that. And of course, just sharing the link. And we should be able to make that happen. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in. And Yebeshi Abio, we will meet again. That's up.